one small segment of what we do is we found that the biggest limitation of growth of a structurally sound company are the unresolved traumas of the CEO.
Mhm.
And when we started applying the battlefield trauma techniques that I was using to heal myself and other SEALs to executives, the growth was astounding in their companies. And so for something like that, that's to me some sort of unresolved trauma that you have in your life early
Mhm.
on. We need to fix that before you start it again, or you'll create the same story all over again.
So it's crazy. So we talk about pillar one, we talk about success, and I was like, oh crap, I need to figure some things out for myself. And I meet with Annie,
Yep.
and she helped me uncover some of the things, right?
Yep.
And
Early on stuff.
it's like really simple stuff, right?
Always is.
But all that stuff, the jokes, right? Like the Asian kids and whatever.
Yep.
But apparently it did impact me, right?
Mhm.
More than I thought. But as I go through this exercise with Annie and we learn about childhood trauma, and my childhood trauma is not severe, but it existed.
So severity of the childhood trauma depends on the effect it has today, right? Like we like to think, well, because you weren't in a car bombing when you were 3, it wasn't severe. But if it's impacted your life for 30 years, that's pretty severe.
It's a very different
Interesting point, right? Like
it's a
it
very
doesn't
interesting
matter.
point.
The impact is what
Yeah.
determines the severity of the trauma, not the trauma.
Right.
We pretend like unless it's a big trauma, it doesn't count. That's not true.
Yeah.
Trauma is merely a lesson we learned when we felt out of control.
Right.
So if that lesson was strongly learned as a little kid, it could have a massive impact for your life moving on, regardless of if it was your parents yelled at you once.
Right. And well, so with that experience with Annie, and it was like an hour and a half,
Yep.
right? A is to completely change how I approach some conversations.
Mhm.
And B, it's kind of like, when you learn something, you kind of see it everywhere, the
Oh,
reticular
yeah.
activating system. I see childhood trauma everywhere.
You can't help it.
Is that something that you like? Okay, that person is dealing with this. This person, like,
Yeah,
does that go through your mind?
It's weird because Annie and I are an amazing pair, like because we see the world in two different ways. When she sees you, she sees what you should be without your trauma.
Mhm.
Like she sees your perfect self as a higher power made you, right?
Mhm.
I see what is causing you all the problems to not be that today. So like I see you today with all the traumas, and she sees what you would look like with none. And it's painful for both of us because you see someone that you care about, and you're like, oh man, I'm seeing all the things they're causing their problems with, and she sees them the way they should be experiencing life.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a pain. It's a burden. And we also had to learn that it's not our job to, like, I could heal all that quick. Like we could spend 10 minutes in the next hour. I tell you all the things that you need to fix.
Mhm.
You have to want to let go of your trauma because your trauma keeps you safe. And people that aren't ready to let it go, when you try to take it away from them, they feel like they're going to die.
I've never heard the expression or the phrase, your trauma keeps you safe.
It does. That's all it is. So trauma is merely the lesson you learned in an environment where you felt like you didn't have control.
Mhm.
So that trauma is the tool that your subconscious uses to make sure that you survive in the future. That's it. If you think about this, say I'm in a big traumatic thing and I die, I don't suffer trauma. I only suffer trauma when I survive, and trauma is what I learned in that experience.
Got it. It's
And
what's
when I
programmed to your psyche.
overuse it,
Yeah.
I create stress. That's post-traumatic stress.
Got
Like
it.
for me, people tried to kill me for 10 years. It wasn't a joke. I wasn't making it up. I wasn't delusional. People actually did for 10 years. For 14 years, I lived in a world where no one was trying to kill me with the lesson that everyone's trying to kill me.
Yeah.
That created stress in my life because it wasn't true.